Obviously, I'm a Yankees fan, so I'd love to see him.
It's almost like legacy of like the NFL versus.
But I definitely think that Baker could be a really good player for the Panthers moving forward.
Did I say Oreos?
There's a lot of questions I have about Mahomes. Looks like a kid playing Madden.
Turning point in the game is the 13-second drive.
They play very hard, even though they're terrible.
He's a good pick. For sure. He's going to be a good player. But I can't argue against the Jamar Chase pick.
They made moves saying we're going to win this year, at least get into the playoffs.
I'm going with my guy, Corey Seager. So glad.
What's good, y'all? My name is Austin Drummond, and I play rugby for the University of Notre Dame. And you're listening to The Outsider's Opinion with Austin and Kevin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Opinions of the Week. This is a video we've done in the past, but somehow, Austin, the story keeps telling itself, and just how Trey Hendrickson is still on the Bengals, but it's just a really complicated situation, Austin.
Yeah, and you could argue that he was the best D lineman in the league last year. He led the NFL in sacks, but also I think that you could easily argue him as over the last 2 years being that guy. And I think that the mismanagement of the Bengals has really been shown. He has been a Pro Bowler, Kevin. Every year he's been with the Bengals. These last 2 years, he's been 17.5 and 17.5 sacks both years. And last year on a pretty not great defense. I mean, the D-line was not great around him, and he's still putting up these numbers. He was an all-pro first team, second in Defensive Player of the Year voting, and I don't know what they're doing. I honestly am at a loss for words regarding this, because I think any team that gets him greatly improves their D-line. And to a point that I think every team in the league could use a Trey Hendrickson on their team. So if they decide not to extend him and meet his demands, and he goes somewhere else and signs a big contract, that team's looking really good. And I know you don't want to overplay players, but to get a 17.5 guy the last 2 years, it's not a fluke. So I don't know what they're doing, and I am extremely interested to see who does go to pick him up, because there's no way they let him just go in free agency.
Yeah, so kind of looking at it, this is kind of a player who is currently in his final year of his contract and wants some security after you talked about the past 2 years where they were getting a lot of, I would say, a pretty good deal, because last year he was making $14,800,000 and the year before that was $6 million.
Yeah, and he's been, both years he's at least been a top 5 defensive end in the sport.
And if you look at defensive end contracts per year, you have it's around $30 million, which just went up with Myles Garrett, with his salary going to $40 million. So he is getting underpaid, but the Bengals, who are I do think some of it is mismanagement, but there is only so much money that can go around, and they decided to place a lot of that money in their offensive weapons and Joe Burrow.
I think the Bengals are building a roster like a Madden fan would. Just get the quarterback and wide receivers, get a good running back with Chase Brown, and let everything else work itself out. But they don't really have a great O-line still. Even though they've tried to add to it, I still don't think they have a great O-line. It's still average at best. And then you have Trey Hendrickson, but if he's gone, I think you have a very bad defense. And that is mismanagement, in my opinion. If you do not lock down Trey Hendrickson, they could have a bottom 5 defense in the league next year. And I don't know what they're going to do. At some point, it's more worth it to pay defensive guys than to pay your wide receiver too, in my opinion. I don't think it's the same level of importance, especially with how much of a difference Trey Hendrickson makes on that side of the ball when you have so many holes on defense already.
Yeah, I would have done the route of you either trade T. Higgins or you let him walk and use that money on your defense, which needs it because you're paying Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Then you just try to draft a second wide receiver, which I know they've tried to draft wide receivers and it just hasn't worked out. And I remember they drafted Myles Murphy from Clemson. They've drafted defensive end lately. but it's just a lot of their picks haven't panned out for the Bengals, which kind of goes to when you're paying so many people that much money, you have to get those, I would say, easy money deals through the draft. So that I think is a problem. Now with Trey Hendrickson, it does seem like he wants to stay with the Bengals.
Yeah, he's made that an emphasis,
yeah.
and I don't think that he's going to try to break the bank, but I do think he wants to be paid like a top 5 DN. Now, I don't think he's trying to ask for, and obviously I don't really know the whole story, and we'll probably hear about it by the time that he's either traded or released if they decide to do that. But I think that he just wants $30 million or top 5 money. Pay me like a top 5 D end, and I'm fine staying here, but also give me the years. Give me the years and $30 million. For example, 5 years, $30 million. Even if that is a little bit long than what you would want for a D end. I think you have to capitalize on the Super Bowl window. It is, in my opinion, okay to overpay for certain players, quote unquote overpay, to guarantee a Super Bowl window. And that's what Trey Hendrickson would do. Because if you don't get him, there's certain guys on defense I like, but not many I love. And you have a lot of problems. And I just am thinking of teams that would be so much improved if they added Trey Hendrickson to them. And this is obviously not the best example, but I'll go to the Cowboys. They're not going to trade for him. But if they did, like if you had Parsons on one side and Trey Hendrickson on the other, you can't double team either of them. You know what I mean? Like you were just going to get bull rushed both sides. And if you were to have the Browns, if the Browns were to add him and they have Mason Graham in the middle, it's insane. Or if you were to, there's a lot of guys or a lot of teams that if they added them to the D line, they either get a significantly better D line and now they actually have an elite D end, or if you already have an elite D end, it makes it to where you can't really double team either of them. So to let this guy walk would be an extreme form of mismanagement, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they have to let him walk, just given what they've done, where they've placed their money. But you could move some money around to where it's not.
Well, according to this, they're not trying anymore, though.
Yeah, then I think you just trade. I think one team that I think would be the top of my list, because you mentioned a team that's willing to overpay in that window. To me, it's the Lions.
That's a good opinion. And to put them on the other side of another great D end again would also be really beneficial. We'll see how.
Well, yeah, you have that injury to Aiden Hutchinson, so that to me he would fill in, and they struggled and they tried their best.
Hutchinson will be back by week 1.
Okay, yeah, but it doesn't put too much pressure on Hutchinson. They're a team where it's like I could see them doing it. They are willing to overpay. I do think the years would be a problem for me, given that he is currently 31, will be 32 next year. And so he's getting a little bit older on that side. But
he's not even 30. He's not even 31 yet. He turns 31 in December of this year.
Okay. It shows Spot Track for this year. It says 31, and then
because it's his quote unquote 31-year-old season. Like if you turn 31 during the season, they consider that your age 31 season. But he doesn't turn 31 until December, so it's basically the end of the towards the end of the regular season whenever he actually will turn 31. But I think it's worth it with the years because if you win a Super Bowl, that's the goal, right? And if it is, hey, pay him like a top 5 DN, but you get top 2 DN production for 2 years, and then top 5 for 2 years, and then top 30 in the last year. Like let's say last year he completely falls off a cliff, right? But you win a title or two in those first 2 years or 3 years. I think that's incredibly worth it. The Lions have never won a title. So it's sure they had titles before the Super Bowl. I don't count that. It's an entirely different realm of the sport. But I think that they're desperate to win, and I think that Dan Campbell would push for a move like this because that's the type of coach that he is.
Absolutely. That's why, to me, the Lions would be at the number 1 list because they have money set with their quarterback. I believe they paid Amon-Ra St. Brown. A lot of their deals are pretty much set to where I think they would have to pay Aiden Hutchinson, but they would just go pay Trey Hendrickson, then figure out Hutchinson's deal later and kind of go all in on it this year because they did lose. I would say, not perform to expectations given where they were. And they are under a new defensive coordinator, so that would help his job. with just getting that pressure. So, yeah, with Hendrickson, teams may be weary of trading with the Bengals just because of how do they view him. And kind of like the Bengals want to keep him. It's just a weird spot, I would say. So we'll have to keep an eye on what exactly happens, because this isn't the first time he's made noise about his contract. He did it last year. It was just with Higgins as well. Higgins got paid. Hendrickson did not, and is still currently on this contract.
Yeah. Do you think that the Bengals can recover from this on their defensive side if they trade him away, or is their defense just going to be bad for the year?
I think their defense is going to be bad for a year. I think there are a lot of young guys that need to perform. So that would be, if they got a good defense or an average defense, it'd be, oh, well, they finally got guys that can perform well, and they're finally reaching their potential when they were drafted.
Is that just more hope, though, than
that's more hope. That's more, I don't think it will be good, but maybe players start putting it together.
I don't think you can bank a Super Bowl window with Joe Burrow on hope, though. I
absolutely, yeah. So, but yeah, that would just be, if the defense doesn't get good, it would be like, oh, okay, it worked out. But if you're trying to win, here's where
I hate people that result in looking at looking to the future, or look into the past, I should say, and like, oh, that was a good move because of this. I think that even if their defense becomes okay, or top 15 in the league, let's say it's above that midway point, this is still a bad move. Like, even if they do sort of get it together on defense, this is still a bad move in my opinion, and that's not going to change my mind unless they are a top 5 defense where they just prove me wrong completely. I don't think that, because let's say they do improve, Kevin, on defense. If you just add Trey Hendrickson to that, now you have a top 10 defense. So I don't think it makes much sense unless they expect their guys to really outperform what they've done in the past.
Yeah, I think it's just a money-saving move because they've invested so much in that offense, which we've kind of been critical of how they've built their team, but Jamar Chase pick worked out for them. So we'll have to see, and I wonder what they get back in a trade. I don't think it's that much. I think this could probably take a mid-round, like maybe a third-round pick.
I agree, but that's not based on the skill or what Trey Hendrickson is. It's the fact that everybody knows they have no power. The Bengals have no power. Yeah. Trey Hendrickson's, I'm out. So whatever you get for me, you get for me. And this is where I'm okay with the player sitting out. Like, I tried to stay with you for so long. I know you need me, and I've been a top 2 guy the last 2 years. Pay me as such. So, yeah, it's crazy to me, but I'm interested to see who ends up getting Trey Hendrickson, because I think whoever gets him is a steal.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens. So we will keep you updated on that. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.